Today, we're diving into one of the strangest, most visceral scenes in the entire book of Genesis. It's called Abraham's Covenant of the Parts. It's this incredibly mysterious ritual, and for literally centuries, people have been trying to figure out what it could possibly mean. And that really brings us to the big question, right? Why on earth would you cut animals in half just to make a promise? It's such a bizarre graphic image. To seal a deal, you slice up animals and lay out the pieces. So what's going on here? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
Okay, so first things first, let's get grounded in the story itself, exactly as it's told in Genesis chapter 15. This is the raw material, the literal foundation for every single interpretation that comes later.
God gives Abraham a very specific shopping list. This isn't just some random collection of animals. We're talking a heifer, a goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And as we're about to see, the types of animals and especially how they're treated are absolutely key to the whole thing.
And here it is, the core of the ritual. Abraham takes the big, domesticated animals, cuts them right down the middle, and creates this kind of pathway between the pieces. But here's the detail you cannot miss. The birds, they're left completely whole. That difference isn't an accident, it's just loaded with symbolic meaning.
So we have this strange scene. What did it actually mean in its original context? This brings us to the first layer of meaning, the foundational covenant. This was a ceremony that was part legal contract, part divine encounter.
The key Hebrew word here is brit, which means covenant. Now, back in the ancient Near East, this is how you made a deadly, serious promise. It was essentially a self-cursing oath. The implication was powerful. If I break this agreement, may I become just like these divided animals. Talk about high stakes.
Now, the order of events here is so important. First, Abraham sets the stage, preparing the sacrifice. Then, this deep sleep falls over him, and it's in this trance-like state that God shows him the future, his descendants' slavery in Egypt and their eventual freedom. And finally, a divine presence, described as a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch, passes right through that path of animal parts, sealing the deal.
The great medieval scholar Rashi really put it perfectly. He explained that this ritual wasn't just symbolic theater. It was the most profound, most intense way to show the absolute, unbreakable nature of God's promise to Abraham. But the story doesn't just stop there with the literal meaning. Not even close. Jewish tradition, especially through mystical writings like the Midrash and Kabbalah, peels back another layer to find a much deeper, hidden truth inside the ritual. And one of the keys to unlocking this mystical layer is hidden right there in the Hebrew language itself. The root parash has a fascinating double meaning. It means to separate, like cutting something apart, but it also means to reveal or to explain. So in this view, the very act of cutting is an act of discovery. By dividing something, you reveal what's really inside. And that brings us right back to our animals. Suddenly, the divided mammals become a symbol for the fractured, physical, earthly world. Our bodies, our societies, things that are breakable. But the undivided birds, they come to symbolize the soul, our spiritual essence, something that's whole, indivisible, and always hovering between heaven and earth.
Now, this is where it gets really epic. This interpretation sees Abraham's small-scale ritual as a mirror of a huge cosmic drama. In Kabbalah, there's this idea of a primordial shattering of the vessels, where divine light burst its containers and scattered across the universe. The ongoing work of humanity is to gather those broken pieces and repair the world, a process called tikkun. So Abraham's act becomes a powerful model for this cosmic job of healing all that is broken.
Okay, so let's jump forward a few thousand years and bring this ancient text right into the present. How does a story like this speak to us today? Well, modern philosophers and psychologists have read it as a profound story about what it even means to be human. If you look at this from an existential point of view, that raw, brutal act of cutting the animals apart symbolizes our need to confront our own mortality. The idea here is that we can only live a truly authentic life when we accept that we are finite, that we are mortal beings, that we are, in a sense, parts and not some unbreakable whole. It's really amazing how this one story became a kind of canvas for so many modern thinkers.
For Levinas, it was about an infinite ethical promise to other people. Derrida saw it as a model for hospitality, something that's always based on risk. For Freud, it was about a symbolic loss needed to create a group identity. And for Jung, it was a classic archetypal initiation into a new phase of life.
In all these modern ideas, commitment, risk, destiny, they all bring us back to one absolutely crucial detail from the original story. Who actually walks between the animal parts? It's not Abraham. It's not both parties. Only one does, the divine presence. And that just reveals how radical this covenant is. God takes the entire curse, the entire risk upon himself. It's an act of pure, one-sided, unconditional commitment. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what we've really seen is how a single ancient story can completely transform. It's a historical pact, a mystical allegory, and a modern philosophical text all wrapped up in one. It all starts with that core story in Genesis 15. And from that one center point, you get these incredible layers of meaning that just radiate outwards. You have the foundational pact, you have the deep mystical symbolism, and you have this searching existential reading. All of it held together by one powerful ancient narrative. And that, right there, is the real takeaway. The reason stories like this survive for thousands of years isn't because they have one single fixed meaning. It's because they're rich enough and deep enough and, yeah, strange enough to be constantly reinterpreted, speaking new truths to every single generation that takes the time to listen. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The Covenant of the Parts is a foundational story for millions. What are the stories in your life, whether they're ancient or modern, religious or not, that have been cut up, rearranged, and reinterpreted to shape the way that you see yourself and the world around you?